used to regularly speak. Those of you that may not know, he was a motivational speaker, Vaishnava, who regularly would speak to Fortune 500 companies. And he said, if you're going to make a presentation, you should get there 2 hours ahead of time to anticipate things not working. So I failed all of you. I got here 20 minutes early, and there's apparently a little bit of a shortage of connection with who's supposed to be here setting up the PowerPoint. So we're still working on it. So what we'll do, we're just going to go ahead and I'll start the presentation. I'll be referring to the PowerPoint that's on my computer. So I apologize. I'll be looking at the screen more than you, but we'll do the best we can. And if Krishna wants, he'll turn on the screen momentarily. But so we learned one lesson so far. According to professionals, how early should you be someplace before your presentation? 2 hours. Okay, good. And who didn't do it today? Anuttama. Okay. And who's suffering because of it? All of us. Okay. So we're still hoping he's going to get it. So the question here, our presentation, just have an hour. So the question is ISKCON ready for the big stage? And then connected to that, are we individually ready? So what do we mean by that? And it's a little hard because there's lots of stuff. I'm going to have to read a lot of details to you before this gets up here. So if we look at our society since 1966, we just had our 50th anniversary not long ago. So since that time, ISKCON's had significant growth in the materials that were assembled for the 50th anniversary. Is it coming? Okay, great. Now, is it big enough for you to see? Is it? It's okay. Can you see it? Somebody in the back? I have no idea. Okay, good. Then there's a lot of background noise, but yeah. Okay, we're working on the fans next. First, we got the light. Now we got the PowerPoint. Then we're going to get the fans. Everything's good. Krishna's good. Everything's wonderful. Okay, so a few statistics are there on ISKCON's growth over the last so many years. And there was another microphone here. Did we have the other microphone? Somebody put it aside. So you can. Okay, fantastic. Because I'm not going to do all the reading. We're going to pass this around from time to time. Get a little involved. You came just in time. Can you read that screen? I think that's on. So these are just some of the things that we've seen practically from nothing in 1966. Little storefront. Before that, not even a storefront. Papa, just a lone elderly person on a ship. And here's what happened by 2016, 15th anniversary. Just real quick.
Temples?
Yeah. 650. Can you read it? 650 temples.
650 temples, 65 farms and eco-villages, 110 vegetarian restaurants, 520 million books distributed, 9 million worshippers, 3 million plates of prasad distributed, 3 billion, oh my God, I can't even perceive of 3 billion, and 3,600 home study and Bhakti Vriksha groups. Haribo.
Okay. A lot of attention over time our society has gained. Here's a quote from, anybody recognize that gentleman there? Okay, who's what? What was his role? Yes, former Prime Minister and a close confidant of Mayapur prabhu. So, can you read what did he say about ISKCON?
The voyage of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the United States in 1965.
Prabhu, can you turn up the volume on this microphone, not mine? Mine's perfect.
His movement gained in a very short spell of 12 years must be regarded as one of the greatest spiritual events of the century.
That's quite an endorsement to say that ISKCON's growth, one of the most significant things, spiritual activity in a whole century, and who's saying it? The Prime Minister, pretty important person there. Okay, next. Here's another quote.
He was a genuine holy person with enormous integrity and compassion, and he had a powerful impact on those who met him. He never claimed authority and respect for himself. What he said and did was always in the name of Krishna. Dr. Thomas Hopkins.
Great. Dr. Hopkins was, I believe, the very first scholar that ever met Srila Prabhupada. He actually went to the Lower East Side to meet this Swami that he'd heard had come to New York City. And this was his one of his many appreciations of Srila Prabhupada. Also, in terms of the attention we've gotten in recent years, ISKCON hosts a... It's fantastic. Gopal Krishna Maharaj, Madhusevita Prabhu, they partnered together. The new Prime Minister Modi came to inaugurate the Bhagavad Gita. That's big news, isn't it? UK Prime Minister visits Bhaktivinoda Manor. Two of them actually visited. One visited, interestingly enough, by the blessings of coming to the temple. Krishna just decided he was going to help his spiritual advancement in such a massive dose he was out of office in 2 weeks. Do you know that? The Prime Minister in the UK, Gordon Brown, was at it. He came to visit our temple, and he was it Cameron, David Cameron, right? David Cameron. Yeah, 2 weeks later, Krishna said, why have all these material things? Better you just become, spiritually advanced. So the newest, but then the most recent Prime Minister, a bit of a colorful fellow, he also went to our temple. Prime Ministers they don't go everywhere. They only go to important places, isn't it? So the fact that Indian Prime Ministers, British Prime Ministers want to be connected with ISKCON at all is a very significant event. Recently, you might have seen, not on the positive side, but just as far as in the news, this just came out just a week ago, terrorist plot. Some government agents in Bangladesh arrested a terrorist cell. They said they were going to attack ISKCON. Why do you attack ISKCON? Do you attack a local sugarcane cart? You attack something important, something visible. So even from the negative side. Okay, so the idea is ISKCON is no longer an anomaly. In some parts of the world, people didn't know who we were. If they didn't know what we were, maybe they didn't respect us. They didn't appreciate us so much. In the early days, there were these kind of hippie-like young people dancing with flowers in the streets. After that, there was some sense of, okay, they're more organized now. You have to dodge them as you run through the airports like that. Some different opinion. But now we're becoming news getters. We're becoming more and more aware, especially here in India, but other parts of the world as well. ISKCON is no longer just a little corner. In America, they have this term, storefront church. Prabhupada started with a storefront, little place. Who's been to 26 Second Avenue? Raise your hand if you've been there. Okay, about a fifth of us maybe. So the whole place is maybe about as wide as from here to here, and not the whole way down there. Maybe where Devamrita Swami is, maybe a little further. It's not a huge, that's where Prabhupada started. But from there, so much growth. So here we are at this point, opening the TOVP in 2022. We hope by Krishna's grace that actually becomes a global event, draws a lot of, we pray, positive attention for our movement. Gaurapurnima village received a UN recognition for its contributions on environmental efforts. Could do a whole seminar on this. ISKCON scholars, many of our individual Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava, Prabhupada, and Nugas have become the leading scholars, experts on Gaudiya Vaishnavism in many parts of the world. Our people are, in the past, we didn't have any experts. Now we do. Devote Krishna Chaitra Swami, Ravi Gupta, Radhika Raman, they're writing books from an academic perspective. Gaurapurnima prabhu, so many. That's a very significant thing in the history of the worldwide growth of ISKCON. And of course, we know there's temples and restaurants been growing all over the world. Okay, but despite the fact more and more successes, more and more attention, in many ways, we're still kind of unknown and a little isolated. Some of us, maybe we prioritize interacting with the world at large, but largely there's a sense of, we kind of stay inside our little camp or inside our walls, maybe brick walls or subtle walls. And we go out sometimes, we chant Hare Krishna, and we try to grab a few conditioned souls and bring them back with us. Or we go out, we sell some books, and then we kind of bring a few people back with us. There's not a whole lot. There are exceptions. Devamrita Maharaj has written some wonderful books. He's very much focused on interaction with the world at large. Mahamantra Prabhu has done some of these things for years. But in general, if you ask this question, and you're all leaders, how many of us know or even know the name of the local mayor? Okay, you're embarrassing everybody because you raised your hand. I wasn't going to put the pressure on. But generally not so much, isn't it? Why? Well, partly because we don't see what's the need for it. I mean, we just chant Hare Krishna and raise our families and go sell a few books and go do a few Harinam and invite a few people to our festivals. You know, we get out. We have Rath Yatra, we have Janmashtami. We get out, but sometimes only those things. So again, to ask how many of us were involved in at least one major public event, not our event, public event. Okay, you're all very honest people. You're actually raising your hands. That's great. I was just going to ask the hypothetical question. Those of you that raised your hands, thank you. So it's a question, you know, were we on the, the stage with the mayor, with the governor, with the chief minister? We involved to the, when the mayor's wife died, were we invited to the funeral? Do they invite us when they have a government panel on health standards? Fantastic opportunity to talk about vegetarianism and to talk about environmental issues. Are we there? And generally across the board we're not. So this is a question of this presentation. Are we really ready for the big stage? How many of us, if you are asked today to host a big event, not a Janmashtami, but some other type of big event, do you know 25 big people? Whatever, reporters, government people, academics, religious leaders, social leaders, who you can invite to attend that event. I think a lot of temples would say, not really. We know a lot of Hindu people, we know a lot of people in our congregation, but outside, you mean outside? I mean, we're supposed to talk to those people? Sometimes we kind of think like that. Devotees in general, but as leaders, of course, we want to see if that's a good plan. Next. Okay, how about Prabhupada? Did he ever think it was important to maybe know the mayor or the chief minister, or maybe even the who's he meeting here? Prime Minister. Anybody, Mama, do you know the year this was taken, by any chance? 1965. Okay, now we know Prabhupada is pure devotee, representative of Krishna, empowered to change the world. What was he in 1965? He was unknown. He wasn't like, he hadn't brought his dancing white elephants back yet. He didn't have worldwide BBT book sales. He didn't have the biggest Bhagavad Gita in the world. He didn't have thousands of people following. He was kind of unknown. How did he do this? Does the Prime Minister just have, I don't know, you tell me, does the Prime Minister have an open day? Anybody can come and Prabhupada just kind of got in line and showed him his book? And was that what happened? This took some work. And Prabhupada prioritized this amongst all the other things he was doing. Next one. Okay, here's a partial list of some of the people Prabhupada knew. We asked the questions, do we know some people? Okay, here's a partial list. Actually, I need somebody to speak, because a lot of Indian.
Lal Bahadur Shastri, the Prime Minister of India. Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India. Brahmananda Reddy, the Home Minister of India. Raj Gopalchari, the Governor General of India. And K.M. Munshi, the Governor of Uttar Pradesh. Akbar Ali Khan, the Governor of Uttar Pradesh. Kalidas Shah, the Governor of Tamil Nadu. Prabhudas Palwari, the Governor of Tamil Nadu. Patwari, the Governor of Tamil Nadu. Jalagam Vengal Rao, Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. Gopal Reddy, the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. Pierre Marcel Raisin, the Mayor of Geneva, Switzerland. George Harrison and John Lennon from the Beatles. Allen Ginsberg, the poet. Bishop Kelly from the Catholic Church of Victoria. Sterling Moss from the famed Formula One race car driver. Lieutenant Mosley, the Chicago Police Department.
Since you've all been so proactive in raising your hands, I'll really put you on the spot. Raise your hands if you spent a half an hour or more with a Formula One race car driver recently. There's one devotee in our movement who's done that. Srila Prabhupada. And if you anybody here from London or the UK? Graham Hill, thank you. Remind me that later. There's two. There's Graham Hill. If this is a mistake, it's not. There was two very famous ones, Sterling Moss and Graham Hill. So even we needed to. So there's some question which one of the two. They were big competitors. But either way, Prabhupada met one of them. And devotees from the UK have told me many times the devotees in the room were shocked. One, how much time Prabhupada spent, and two, what he talked about. Anybody know what Prabhupada talked to him about? Birth and death, chant Hare Krishna, shave your head, move into the temple. He talked to him about, oh, his name's up there, race cars. Race car, you know? Can you just certify he talked about race
Yeah, when Graham Hill, it was Graham Hill in particular, came to talk to Prabhupada, Prabhupada just listened to Graham Hill talking about his career, about his life and his lifestyle. And then eventually, Graham Hill, he said, there are times when I'm leading a race and I'm driving at 200 miles an hour, I feel that I'm face to face with God. And then Prabhupada says, yes. Then he started to talk about Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki. Okay, so here's a few more people. I thought the list was done. Go ahead.
Edward Davis, from a member of the U.S. Senate. J.K. Birla, a leading businessman. Veer Swami, the Chief Justice of Tamil Nadu High Court. Professor Joseph O'Connell, a religion scholar, and many, many more.
Yeah, many more. Many more. One of these days, some smart person out there, maybe in this audience, is going to make an actual list of all the people interacted with. How about, these are the ones he met. Did Prabhupada write to anybody else? Who are some of the people you can think of that Prabhupada wrote to? Wrote to Mahatma Gandhi. Who else did he write to? Wrote to all kinds of big industrialists, and even when he was in New York, please help me build the temple, so many things. Wrote to Gaudiya Math leaders, so many people. There's one other kind of famous person that he wrote to. Who's that? He wrote to the Pope. Everybody know who the Pope is? Kind of a big guy. He's probably the most recognized man in the world. Well known. Of course, today there's two of them, but that's another story. Okay, he wrote to the Pope. Now, let's see what his opening line was to the Pope.
Please accept my respectful humble obeisances at your lotus feet. I beg to introduce myself as an Indian monk. A letter dated 3rd August 1968 to His Holiness the Pope Paul VI. What? Yeah. No, I can't read it.
This is how Prabhupada's letter opens. Please accept. This is Prabhupada's, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, writing to the Roman Pope. Those of you that don't know, he is celibate, we understand. Catholics generally, they don't have anything about intoxicants. Intoxicants are okay. They're not vegetarians. I don't know if he buys lottery tickets, but he's not, the Pope isn't famous for following the regulated principles and all that. Prabhupada said, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. Wow. I mean, why did he do that? Why did he reach out to him? Why did he reach out to the Pope? Later he says, let's work together cooperatively to spread God consciousness. But Prabhupada approached him. You're an influential man. You have a lot of impact on the world. Maybe we can work together. I'm a humble Indian monk, he described himself. But he saw, let's look for some networking opportunities. Okay? Next. Why did Prabhupada reach out?
If you make some of the big government officials interested in our movement, then our strength will increase. Because we're in the material world, sometimes we require that help. Another point is that if a government officer becomes our admirer or member, then many others will follow. So try to make them sympathizers.
So Srila Prabhupada was, back to our theme, the big stage. You know, there's this expression in English, the world is a big stage. I'm paraphrasing. So in our preaching movement, there's a big stage out there. There's big opportunities. And previously, the first 50 years, we kind of went along by little steps. So the question is, we see behind the whole time, Prabhupada's thinking big. Can you go backwards one slide? Prabhupada wrote, that's it, 1968. What was going on in 1968? Were we opening the TOVP? Did we have 87 books translated? Did we have devotees on every continent? 1968, this guy was teeny. But Prabhupada saw big. He wanted that big opportunity, the big stage, the world. It's an opportunity. We need to spread Krishna consciousness in a big way. So he's talking to big people. How can we work together? Okay. Okay, so Prabhupada gave us this example. Also said devotees are the greatest opportunists. So as leaders, we need to, as we see our movements getting bigger and bigger, it's like sometimes you see like a teenager, right? We've all been teenagers. Maybe some of you have teenagers or you've had teenagers. Teenagers, sometimes they grow a little funny. You ever notice that? Some kids, their legs get long before anything else, or their ears get big before the rest of their face changes, or their arms, they get big hands on a little. It's like they grow in certain areas, but then later it all balances out. So in a similar way, ISKCON, we kind of had growth spurts. And the point is, we're big, but is our mentality caught up with it? We're potentially very influential, but are we ready to take advantage of the opportunities? We are drawing world attention, but do we have the vision of what it actually means to interact with the world in an effective way? And therefore, Prabhupada said devotees are the greatest opportunists. So the opportunities can't be the ones we had the first 50 years. What's the new opportunities? The whole theme of this ILS is the future. So what are the opportunities that are there now that are coming in 5, 10, 20 years? And how can we as leaders get out in front of those? Again, Prabhupada said, try to make them sympathizers. This is a very important point. Sometimes in our movement, we have a tendency to think us, them, in, out, devotees, non-devotees, or sometimes we even use a word that's not as nice, karmis. I don't recommend you use that word. There's even other words. 16th chapter Bhagavad Gita, don't use those words. Krishna can say that. We can't say that. So there's a tendency to kind of see this polarity. And the world is very polarized. I live in America. It's like the nastiest political environment in my 65 years. And in the UK, it's like splitting and, whatever our opinion might be, this side, that side. It's very, very polarized. And Vaishnavas, our worldview, our basic theology is there's no polarization. There's no duality. Ultimately, we're all devotees. Some people are more aware of it. Some people are not so much aware of it. And we have the responsibility to try to wake up society at large to understand that. That's our mission given by Lord Chaitanya. So Prabhupada is saying, make them sympathizers. What does that imply? If Prabhupada says make big people sympathizers, he's also saying, in other words, don't expect to make them what? Devotees. It's not like, Krishna was personally on the planet. Did everybody become a Vaishnava? Right? There would be no Krishna book. There'd be no exciting, killing the demon stories if they all became devotees, right? When Lord Chaitanya was here, did everybody become a devotee? When Srila Prabhupada was here, did everybody become a devotee? Prabhupada, no, but he said make them sympathizers. So in the same way as leaders, if we're going to have impact on a larger scale in the world, like, the TOVP's opening, Prabhupada said some things like, I think if the Queen of England comes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur will personally come down and take everybody back to Godhead, something like that. So I don't know if the Queen's coming, but hopefully the Queen and the President. What is that after election year or what? Let's hold that invitation back. Anyway, if some big people come here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur would be very happy. And we know Prabhupada would be very, very happy. So if that means those people, it's not like they're going to become Gaudiya Vaishnavas to come to the celebration, but they could become sympathizers. They could become friends. They can become people that say, I don't agree with everything you teach. I don't do everything you teach, but I value you. I value your contributions. Can you help us? Can we work together? Just like Prabhupada wrote the Pope, let's work together. Let's work together. Okay, next. Okay, so here's some principles kind of borrowing from the communications discipline. We give these as kind of guiding principles, how we can build these bridges, how we can make sympathizers. And the first one, of course, is we have to be consistent with Prabhupada's teaching and example. It's not that we just go out and come up with our own idea on things, but we can see in this line of thought, how Prabhupada was very proactive in building relationships and trying to make people sympathizers. He met with policemen. He met with religious leaders. He met with industrialists. He met with government people because he knew they can help us and we can also help them. When he talked to this police lieutenant, it's in the Science of Self-Realization if you want to read the whole thing. He said, he talked to him about, if you remember the name of that chapter in the SSR book? Crime and What to Do. Or maybe What to Do About It. So he talked to the lieutenant about crime and how Hare Krishna movement can help you resolve crime. When he talked to the Pope, it was like, let's try to spread God consciousness together. When he talked to the race car driver, it's like, tell me about yourself. And then here's maybe we can bring a little Krishna in there. So when you're driving, feeling you're touching God, or maybe some sense of death is also there, how we can help you. So it's kind of like a win-win scenario. So we have to be consistent with Prabhupada. Second one is proactivity. We can't just wait. You know, like maybe the Queen's going to call next week, say, Ambarish Prabhu, could I come to the opening? Is that going to happen? Could happen, but less likely. Okay, but we can go out and... Was Prabhupada proactive in some of the things we talked about here? With the Prime Minister, with the letter to the Pope, with the letter to Mahatma Gandhi. He didn't wait for things to happen. He made things happen. Okay? Prabhupada's not physically here right now. Who's supposed to make things happen? The Bhaktas and the Bhaktins back in your temples? Oh... Those of you that didn't hear, he said the GBC. Yes. So, yes, the GBC is being proactive, presenting this seminar to inspire all of you, make it happen. Okay? Yes, this is a GBC endorsed seminar. So we have to be proactive. Time, place, and circumstance. Things, specific ways Prabhupada talked to the Pope in 1968. Maybe you have to adjust that a little bit. The principle is make connection. The principle is become a sympathizer. The specifics, it varies from what works in Delhi, may be different from Chennai, which is going to be different than Kuala Lumpur, which is different than Honolulu, which is different from Budapest. But the principle is there. We have to be proactive. Time, place, and circumstance. And then this is important. Sometimes we we don't take this seriously. Again, the example. The principle is building mutually beneficial relationships. That's win-win. Okay? Let's say you have a temple in a small town, or whatever, good-sized town, and the government's talking about putting a bridge in or widening the road that's going to knock down your temple, a mosque, 2 churches, a synagogue, and a gurdwara. And you don't want your temple to be knocked down. You have anything in common with those neighbors? You got a lot of stuff in common with those neighbors. As a Hare Krishna devotee representative of one temple, you may have some influence. If you walk in with the Gurdwara leader and the imam and the priest and the minister and the Buddhist monk, etc., are you going to have more influence? A lot more influence. Okay, so that's win-win. And something as simple as building restrictions, and as important as, speaking out on current social issues of the day. So we need to look for win-win. Simple example. A few years ago, we had a congressman from the United States who visited our temple for Janmashtami, and I was kind of hosting him. And Washington, D.C. has a pretty big Janmashtami. We get about 10,000 people. It's crowded. There's a lot of people. So as we were walking around, he commented once or twice. He said, there's a lot of people here. Okay? Now translate that into politician-ish. Okay? What does that translate to? There's a lot of votes here. Does that man need votes? He lives on votes. He sinks or swims on votes. We have votes. Okay? I went to a wonderful event at the Bhaktivedanta Manor a few years ago, some Sunday feast, and they had 5 gentlemen, nice English gentlemen in their suits and their ties and their cufflinks and, of course, their socks on their feet, and they were introduced as members of the members of parliament in the UK. And they were there to meet the devotees and all of that because it was about 2 months before the elections. And the devotees mentioned next week the other party's coming, which you have to do. You know, you can't show favoritism. It's risky. You know, we cannot align with any political party in any part of the world. We're a religious organization. We can't become political for many, many reasons, one of which is elections come again. Parties rise, parties fall. It's the history of the world. But we can work with anybody. So they had these different representatives that were there because they were reaching out. So win-win. These people come and they meet us. They find out about our issues. Maybe they help us get our Goshala built. Maybe they speak on stage. Because they're there, it gets more media attention, convinces a few more of the people in England that we're good people, etc., etc. And how does it benefit them? They learn about the issues in the community, and maybe they may get a few votes. It's win-win, okay? So important principle. It's not all about our benefit. If we're just thinking me, right? Anybody have a friend who's like selfish? Anybody have a really, really, really close friend who just talks about themselves all the time and doesn't care about you? You might have a teenager like that. I mentioned teenagers before, right? That's the difference. But you don't keep friends like that. There's a mutual benefit, isn't there? So if we're going to be on the big stage, if we're going to start having more impact on the world, it's going to be some give and take. Now we have our principles. We don't change our principles at all, but sometimes you have to interact with people who have different lifestyles and different views. Where is there opportunity to work together? Okay. Okay, lecture from Srila Prabhupada. Excerpt.
One of the qualification is Daksha. He must be very expert in doing things very nicely. Not that because one is Vaishnava, he will be callous in the worldly things. No. Not that I have been become Vaishnava. Let everything be stolen or spoiled or broken. I cannot take care. That is not my consideration. Srila Prabhupada lecture, Vrindavan, October 1st, 1976. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.40.
So I would propose, many of us may see this pattern in ourselves and maybe others, and not everybody. But I think for those of us that came to Vaishnavism from not a strict Vaishnava upbringing, sometimes we separate ourselves from those things that distracted us, or maybe even were impious. You cut those things off. I know I joined a temple in the middle United States in Colorado, and I often wonder if I tried to join a temple in Detroit, Michigan, where I was born, I don't know if I would have stayed a Vaishnava. There was, to use a Western terminology, too much temptation in that place. I had to get away from there and new people, and I didn't want to be reminded all those places I used to go and the things I used to do. So it's natural we feel a little kind of aversion in our immaturity to the society at large. Maybe not everybody goes through that phase, but some of us do. But if we're going to be on the big stage, we got to be ready to interact with people in a different way. I'll mention a couple things I saw in the maturation of our society. A few years ago in North America, we started these events called the Festival of Inspiration. Some of you might have been there. One of the best things about that, there was a devotee named Yadunath. Some of you may know him. He's a professional comedian. And Yadunath came in and on a stage in front of about 400 devotees, made a bunch of really good jokes about the GBC and about book distribution and about gurus and about brahmachari life. And I thought, wow, there's hope for our movement. Because when we can laugh at ourselves, and how sometimes we don't quite get it right, we go a little overboard here or there, that's a sign of maturity. So in the same way, we may have been averse to a lot of things in the material world because it's just the material world. But when we get a little more advanced, especially leaders, we start to see there's a lot of things in the so-called material world that can be used in Krishna service. Now, of course, we always have to be careful. There's danger, right? Prabhupada said spiritual life's like a razor's edge. You always have to be careful. We can't get proud or lose our sense of caution. But as far as engaging more and more things in Krishna service, that's part of our maturing. So, here again, Prabhupada, engaging the media, engaging technology. Raise your hand if you've seen this interview. It's a beautiful one, isn't it? This man was so respectful and so much appreciated Prabhupada. And then I was thinking, whenever I watched that, we know Prabhupada walked a long distance at a fast pace almost every single morning. And the young devotees couldn't even keep up with him, right? But when this interview's over, Prabhupada kind of like, I'm having trouble getting up here. If you watch it next time. And the man's like helping, let me help you up. And I was kind of thinking, like, was this Prabhupada's trick to get a little more service out of this nice man? Because he literally kind of helped him up out of his. Do you think he was like? I'm thinking like Prabhupada's going to go home and like walk a mile, the next morning. But it's quite interesting. Okay, so let's do this. It's a big group here, but just organize yourselves. We're going to take just about maybe 7 minutes or so. Little groups of 4 or 5 devotees. Maybe you kind of turn in circles. 2 questions to discuss and try to have everybody share a word or two. What are opportunities in your area to increase our influence on what's going on in the world out there? Okay, first question. And what could you do practically to move forward to realize those? Maybe Maharaj is thinking he's got another book he's thinking about, because he keeps up with trends. He's very conscientious of what's going on out there and what are the young people thinking and what's happening with the politics. And, so maybe he's thinking there's another book yet, brewing in his head. Or some of you could be different ways. What are the opportunities to get ISKCON on the big stage? And to act in the proper way and to manifest that opportunity. So again, just turn in little circles, people you know, people you don't know, and these are the 2 questions to ask, okay? Again, about 5-7 minutes. Okay, Hare Krishna. I'm sorry to interrupt, but this particular scheduled time, some of the other times have an hour and 15 minutes. This one we only get an hour, so we have to kind of cut our interactive time a little bit more. So if we can have everybody just turn and look up here on the front again. As you're turning your chairs on, I'll remind everybody of one thing. We've been getting this message. Remind everybody, probably the most important thing that can go on in the whole ILS is not what's up on the plenary or under the tents, but it's interacting with each other. So please take advantage. You find yourself, in an elevator with somebody. Where are you from, Mataji Prabhu? Where are you from? What's your service? There's tremendous resources. There's 75 seminars, but there's 10, 15 times that many devotees. So please take full advantage of each other's association. So, okay, highlighting a few things. We're on the edge of the big stage. Prime ministers, scholars, race car drivers. We're right on the edge. TOVP's coming. We're growing all around the world. Prabhupada himself was like pushing to be up there, to, be interacting with people in a proactive way. So what can we do? What can ISKCON do to be ready? Because it's coming. We will be drawing more attention. The question is, are we ready for it? And one thing I would humbly remind everybody, when you draw attention, let's just give the example of media. How many of you have ever worked with the media before? So there's social media, there's so much attention in so many ways. We all know the media always gives you the benefit of the doubt. Isn't it? They only want to tell the good news. They never want to know the other side. Whatever allegations are there against you, they're going to ignore all those and just say all the goody good stuff that you say. True or false? False. So as leaders, what do we have to do before the big stage, before the big party? If you're going to have a party at your house, first you plan it all out, okay, then you buy the stuff you need, and then what do you do the day of or the day before? What's an essential thing before your party? Invites, okay, they invited them a week or two ahead, but what do you do the day or two ahead? Prepare. What do you do to prepare? I'm not coming to any of your parties, that's for sure.
You clean your house.
Raise your hand if you've ever had a party you didn't clean the house. No, don't raise your hand. That's embarrassing. You got to clean the house. So when the big stage is coming, when the lights are coming, when the government's coming, when the neighbors are coming, when the media is coming, you got to make sure there's no skeletons in the closet. As best you can. I'm serving in India these days. It's a complicated place. But the goal has to be there. The goal has to be, I've told devotees forever, when the TOVP opens, I assume we're going to get some media attention. I'm sure we are, okay? Any reporter worth 2 cents is going to sit for the public press conference for about 15 minutes, and then what are they going to do? Who can say? Think like a reporter. Google, of course, they're going to Google whether they want to come or not. Yeah, they're going to go across the street. And they're going to stand out front. They're going to talk to the rickshaw drivers. And they're going to ask them, does this place help you or hurt you? That's going to be the story. What's the impact? We're all thinking big, beautiful building or, fancy books or, we're feeding somebody. They're going to ask, what's the impact on people's lives? So you as leaders, we need to be, what's the impact of my temple, my community, my neighborhood? We oftentimes think, I had a meeting with some of the GBC leaders this morning. There's kind of this assumption, everybody out there knows. The GBC Executive Committee starts their meetings at 7 o'clock in the morning. Their last one usually ends about 10 o'clock at night. Marsh has been chairman. I was chairman once. That's how busy. How many people are thinking, the GBC, they're the hardest working people in the movement? Is that what people are thinking? Not so much. Nobody's, yeah. So that's an issue. People don't really understand it. So similarly, if you don't know that about the GBC, how many people in your city, town, country know how dedicated, how sincere, how hardworking, how selfless you are? They don't know that. And when they come to interact with us, they are going to tend to look to see the negatives. So we got to clean up the negatives as part of it. So how do we be ready for the big stage? Some practical things. We have to have the vision. Prabhupada had a big vision. Huge temple. Write the Pope. Talk to the prime ministers. So the vision has to be there about the opportunities and the wonderful contributions we can make. Training. You're all leaders. We need to be trained how to interact with people. Most of us are pretty good about downloading about Krishna. He asks us a question, or even we don't even ask sometimes. We can go on for hours about Krishna. We're not so good about the listening part. But if you're going to build relationships with people, it starts with listening. So we need to learn how to become better listeners and active listeners. Resources, just mention here, there's some communications resources we'll bring up there in a few minutes, but you're also resources too. Find out, what did Prabhupada, how did he interact with Graham Hill? How did the Hungarian Yatra turn around a government that tried to shut us down 3 or 4 times? How did they do that? How did Mahamantra and others get the Prime Minister of India to come and visit so many of our, how do they do that? To learn from the people that are there. The most important thing, depend on Krishna. Quick story, Shonaka Rishi, he's the director of the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. Phenomenal work promoting interaction with academics. The Oxford Center for Hindu Studies started one day when Shonaka Rishi was introduced by a friend of his, a scholar named Kenneth Cracknell, said, I want to meet you. He took him over to meet someone named Keith Ward, who was the Regius Professor of Theology at Oxford University. He introduced themselves, somehow talked about the Bhagavatam. Shonaka Rishi said, let me send you a set of Bhagavatams. He was very grateful. Shonaka met him a couple months later, said, did you get the books? Yes, I did. Did you enjoy them? Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed reading them. Opportunity. Shonaka thought, this man is serious. He's read Prabhupada's books. From that seed, today, the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies, I think this year celebrated their 20th anniversary, producing Sanga. Yeah, that's worth a round of applause. Because they saw an opportunity, they made it happen. So many scholars who've come there. These days, you know, the BBC, you want to know about Hinduism, you talk to the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. In India, you want to know about Hinduism, you talk to the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. Scholars know that. It's highly respected. Just because a devotee saw an opportunity and he made it happen. So we have to be opportunists. The Krishna, that's the Krishna factor. Geez, Krishna, I don't know. Let me go meet this person. Here's an opportunity. Probably, let's write the Pope. See what Krishna wants. Okay? Next. And of course, be proactive. We talked about that previously. A little bit more about the vision. That knowing that we have contributed, we should feel proud. We have a lot to say. Religious dialogue, religious freedom. We should be the embodiment of religious freedom. Atato Brahma Jignasa, the whole purpose of human life is to inquire about God. However anybody's inspired to do that, that is their first and foremost right, and we should be ready to die to protect the rights of other people, whether they're Vaishnavas or broader Hindu community or Muslims or Jews or Christians, doesn't matter. We want to help people inquire about God. The world needs that voice. We need to share that voice. Environmental issues, we've got a lot to say. A lot to say. Forgive the plastic bottle there was given by a friend. Don't get that on camera. That's a joke, but anyway. Okay, social issues, diversity. Are we diverse? We are diverse. Walk around here. How many languages? Next time you walk by somebody here at the ILS and you hear a language you don't recognize, just go up and ask them, Prabhu, Mataji, where are you from? You know, find there's a lot of languages being spoken out there. We are wonderful United Nations of the spiritual world, as it said. Okay, ethical and leadership issues. Next. Okay, and the training starts with listening skills, team building. Most important thing when we interact with these people, the big people that get on the stage, is ask advice. What can we do to help you? What do you recommend we do? Very important thing, especially like with scholars, government people, ask their advice. Do you have some advice what we can do? Those of you that ever done any fundraising, you know this little mantra. If you want people's money, ask their advice. If you want their advice, ask them for money. Okay? Not enough time to get into that in detail, but it's a very important principle. Okay, here's some resources. You can write this down. This is a communications website, communications at ISKCON.org. There's a beautifully written interface statement. There's media statements, media releases. We have annual conferences to get more training in India every year. In the United States, we've started this up again. In Europe, those of you that don't know, we humbly request you log on to ISKCON News from time to time. It's a wonderful source of information about what's going on in the movement. Share it with your colleagues, share it with your communities. It's a wonderful, valuable source. And I think we're almost wrapping it up here. What do we got? A couple more slides, some important ones. Okay, keep in mind that Krishna factor. I can say, I'm the communications director. I'm good at a few things. I'm not good at a lot of things. But just personality-wise, when I was a kid, I didn't even like to answer the telephone. So my phone would ring, Mom, you answer. I don't want to talk. I was too shy. And I went to a conference a few years ago with Mukunda Maharaj, and I said, Maharaj, they're saying something. What they're saying is false. Somebody needs to correct this. And he said, stand up there and get over there. So I stood up and challenged some big guy on a big stage. And then I sat down again. And then the big guy on the big stage said, no, we don't agree with it because of blah, blah, blah. I said, Maharaj, that's not right. He said, get up there. So I stood up again in front of 400 people and television cameras and challenged this very big scholar. Yeah, you're not right. You're wrong on this. And the whole convention switched and adopted what I said instead of him. So I didn't want to do that. So same way. Haribo. Small thing, but just an example. We all can do that. We're meant to do that. We're meant to do that. Okay, next one. So, wonderful prayer. Maharaj, can you?
My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure as you like. O Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, O Lord, make me dance as you like. Signed, the most unfortunate, most insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami.
So Srila Prabhupada was ready to dance on the big stage. He danced on the big stage. He asked us all to dance on the big stage. So none of us should think, I don't have the qualifications. Certainly we don't have anywhere near the qualifications and the Shakti and the Bhakti that Prabhupada had. But we're all Prabhupada Nugas. We're supposed to carry on in his footsteps. And we all have our little Shakti. We all have our little ability to change the world. So please, ISKCON's coming up to the big stage. It's happening. It's coming. Question is, are we ready to take advantage of it? Following in the footsteps of our founder, Charya. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate the time. I think we've got about 2-3 minutes for questions. If there's any questions or comments anybody might have. And I apologize, there's not more time. There's some of the sessions an hour and 15. This one's just an hour, so it has to be a little tighter. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. Real concise if you can.
Your advice is on our speech, how we can improve our speech.
Take the ISKCON Communications course section on public speaking, which actually I taught here the previous 3 or 4 ILSs. But if you go, check with me later, I'll give you some website information on that. Or there's so many, but just read some, but go online. Like Mars said, Google, everything's on Google. Public speaking, do some practice. A lot of resources, very good resources out there. Somebody here had a question? One of the ladies had a hand? No? Okay, take one more.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you. My question is, if we don't know the big celebrities, big people out there directly, so how we can approach them?
I like to quote a very famous woman in India, Mother Teresa. She said, none of us can do big things. We can only do small things with great love. So there's no big people. There's no big people. And if you meet some, Mahamatra knows this, if you meet some big people, more important than the big person is who? The secretary to the big person. And more important than the secretary to the big person, the secretary to the secretary to the big person. So start wherever you can. It's not like we think, I should go meet the prime minister. Well, what about the imam across the street? What about the mother of the newest devotee that just joined the temple? What about, we think, we should try to get the chief minister. Well, what about the local in the West? They say city council. They have more impact on what we're doing than those big guys way up there. So just start someplace, walk across the street. How about the bus driver? How many of us take the time to meet the bus driver? The bus driver is a person. He or she's got friends. They've got connections. They're also important people. So every moment, who knows who's there? Okay? And obviously, I mean, you're all leaders, but make sure people underneath us should coordinate. We're not asking like every single devotee in the movement to like, you know, go knock on the door of the Pope tomorrow. That would be very counterproductive. It needs to be done systematically, but the idea is this is the, you know, the spirit behind it all. Okay? Quickly.
I just wanted to share this, that in Vancouver every year the Rath Yatra parade gets bigger and bigger because they invite different community people to participate with their dragon and Mexican dance and drumming from Sikh people.
See, so here's the question. She said every year the Janmashtami, Rath Yatra gets bigger and bigger because we invite this group and this group. Here's the question. Here's the question. Do we go to the Mexican dances? Why not? Are we out there? Are we on the big stage, or we're just like, you know, okay, this is our festival, please come, and then we go back into hiding? We got to get out there more. Okay? Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you all for coming. It's really an honor to be in the same tent with you for a few minutes.